Gandhi's Passion: The Life and Legacy of Mahatma Gandhi by Stanley Wolpert. On May 13th, Gandhi went up to Simla to meet with the new Viceroy, Lord Wellington, former Governor of Bombay, a more conservatively rigid imperialist than Irvine, whose viceregal term had ended in April. Wellington was neither as gracious nor as generous as Irvine had been in dealing with Gandhi, who would soon become his prisoner. From Simla, he went to the United Provinces Nainital Hill Station to meet with Governor Malcolm Haley, Motilal's old friend. They discussed the recent tragic communal riots and proliferating agrarian problems that plagued India's most populous province. Gandhi disclaimed any idea of a no-rent campaign, which Haley told him the local Congress was trying to launch in order to establish a parallel government in the United Provinces. Before year's end, Gandhi would hear much more about that from Nehru, who took a lead in organizing agrarian unrest in his province. By late June of 1931, Gandhi prepared his entourage for the Round Table trip, his first visit to London since he'd gone there from South Africa 17 years earlier. He decided his wife was too sick to travel any place outside India, and he was eager to take only Meera with him to prepare his foods in London. "You are on the brain," Gandhi now wrote his beloved sister, who managed to tear myself away from him that June, returning alone to Sabarmati Ashram. "I looked about me and miss you," he confessed to Meera. "I opened the charkha, spinning wheel, and miss you," so on and so forth. "But what is the use?" he conceded, taking both sides of his dialogue with himself. "You have left your home, your people, and all that people prize most, not to serve me personally, but to serve the cause I stand for. All the time you were squandering your love on me personally. I felt guilty, and I exploded on the slightest pretext. Now that you are not with me, my anger turns itself upon me for having given you all those terrible scoldings. But I was on a bed of hot ashes all the while." Then he reminded himself that soon they would travel to London together, and that elicited a happy 40-year-old memory of an English public school cheer, with which he ended his letter. "Cheer, boys, cheer! No more idle sorrow." Charlie Andrews managed the mundane housing details of his visit from London, accepting Muriel Lester's offer to accommodate Gandhi's small entourage in her East End welfare settlement, Kingsley Hall. "I would rather stay at your settlement than anywhere else," Gandhi confirmed, "for there I will be living among the same sort of people as those for whom I have spent my life." He decided to bring along Mahadev Desai and Pyare Lal as well as son Devdas to serve as his London secretariat. Neither of his Congress heirs, Vallabhbhai or Jawaharlal, was invited, though both had been eager to join. On August 29, 1931, Gandhi slowly climbed aboard the SS Rajputana with his intimate band of faithful followers. "I shall endeavour to represent every interest that does not conflict with the interests of the dumb millions for whom the Congress exists," he told a Reuters correspondent on the ship. He kept excellent health at sea. It was raining when he reached London on September 12, 1931. Asked if he planned to go to the theatre, he said he wouldn't have time, but recalled that when he studied in London, he used to visit the Lyceum, liked Shakespeare's plays, and adored the incomparable Ellen Terry. "I worshipped her." He was driven to a friend's house at Euston Road and informed the crowd awaiting him that The Congress wants freedom unadulterated for the dumb and starving millions. The second roundtable conference had already begun, and Gandhi addressed the Federal Structure Committee soon after he arrived. On September 15, 1931, I am but a poor, humble agent acting on behalf of the Indian National Congress, he told that assembly of more than 100 elegantly attired delegates, 23 representing bejeweled princes of Indian states, 69 from British India, 20 representatives of Great Britain. He began with the history of the Congress, which represented, he told them, all Indian interests and all classes. He stressed, however, its commitment to the dumb, semi-starved millions living in India's 700,000 villages. Time was when I prided myself on being, and being called, a British subject. I have ceased for many years to call myself a British subject. I would far rather be called a rebel than a subject. Charlie Chaplin went to meet him at the home of a mutual friend. Gandhi had never heard of Chaplin, but Charlie was eager to shake his hand. The next day, Gandhi met with the Aga Khan at his suite in the Ritz, but it did not result in any breakthrough agreement leading to Hindu-Muslim unity. Though cautioned to stay away from Britain's depressed Midlands, Gandhi journeyed to Lancashire, where he spoke to unemployed mill workers, many of whom blamed him and India's boycott for the hard times that had thrown them out of work. He was pained at the unemployment he saw there, but he told them that if they went to India's villages, they would find starvation and living corpses. Today, India is a curse, he said, explaining that was why he had taught Indians to spin, work with which they were familiar, which they could do in their cottages. The unemployed British workers responded warmly to Gandhi's unadorned simplicity and the passion of his argument. After returning from Lancashire, Gandhi met with Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald, advising him that the conference was futile because the other delegates were only the nominees of the government. He insisted that he could represent the Muslims and the depressed classes much better than those who claimed to do so. He and the British alone could settle the entire question if he was treated as representing everybody. The Prime Minister wryly remarked that the conference had been slightly successful since it brought Gandhi back to London. MacDonald then told him that his civil disobedience movement was a mistake and only hindered the British government. Fenner Brockway and his independent Labour Party hosted a lunch to celebrate Gandhi's 62nd birthday. 400 English guests packing the festive Westminster Palace rooms. Yet, by early October, he knew, as he told a meeting of friends of India, that I seem to be failing. How could it possibly be otherwise? He hardly had time to meet with, read, or hear all the speeches of other members of the conference, and barely strength enough to survive London's autumnal chills. He was obliged to confess to the Prime Minister and friends at a meeting of the Minorities Committee with deep sorrow and deeper humiliation that I have to announce utter failure to secure any solution of the communal question. None of the Muslim delegates with whom he spoke in London, and few of the Sikhs would agree to follow his lead. He suggested, therefore, to adjourn the Minorities Committee and refused to agree to any separate electorate formula for untouchables. He announced that the conscience of Hindus has been stirred and untouchables will soon be a relic of our sinful past. In mid-October, he received a cable from Jawaharlal informing him of the critical agrarian situation in the United Province. Tenants were being ejected from their property, then arrested for criminal trespass. Nehru reported, He was eager to launch a Congress-led action clearly contrary to Gandhi-Irwin truce. Hence, he was requesting Gandhi's permission. You should unhesitatingly take necessary steps, Gandhi wired back. Accept nothing here. He had talked himself hoarse in richly panelled rooms filled with princes and British officers, none of whom sympathized with his revolutionary arguments. And he had seen enough outside Westminster Palace to know how little depressed Englishmen worried about India's poverty. He knew before leaving Bombay, of course, how slightly a chance he stood of turning the giant luxury liner of Britain's empire around with his single voice and naked body. But he had resolved to leave no stone of possible reconciliation unturned, no barrier untested by the tap of his bare hands and the cry of his small voice. Independence has to be earned by sacrifice and self-suffering, he told a Nottingham College audience that October, reiterating the passionate lessons he'd learned long ago in South Africa. Nations have come to freedom through rivers of blood. India would have to go through the same fiery ordeal before England could be convinced that it was good for herself as well to grant India her freedom. He resolved a week later to return home to prove by suffering that the whole country wants what it asks for. At Pembroke College, Cambridge, he admitted, I know that every honest Englishman wants to see India free, but feels that the moment British arms are removed, there would be invasions and internecine strife. But he argued, my contention is that it is the British presence that is the cause of internal chaos, because you have ruled India according to the principle of divide and rule. By mid-November, most of the Indian delegates wrote to the Prime Minister and asked him to arbitrate a settlement to the communal question, apportioning what he considered to be a fair block of seats in every new council chamber to Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs. Gandhi refused to join in that request. Congress will never be reconciled to any further extension of the principle of separate electorates. Gandhi resolved to leave London on 5th December, embarking with Mira directly to Paris, thence on to Villeneuve, Romain Rolland's home in Switzerland. The little man, bespectacled and toothless, was wrapped in his white burnous, Rolland reported, but his legs, thin as heron's stilts, were bare. His shaven head was uncovered and wet with rain. He came to me with a dry laugh, his mouth open like a good dog panting. They stopped in Italy before sailing on to India. In Rome, Gandhi was brought to Mussolini by Rolland's friend General Morris, accompanied by Mira. Mussolini addressed Bapu in quite good English, Mira recalled, and asked a number of questions about India. When about 10 minutes had passed, he rose from his seat and accompanied us to the door. Quite unusual behavior for Mussolini, who did not rise from his chair as a rule. British repression had begun with a vengeance before Gandhi reached Bombay. Jawaharlal Nehru was arrested on December 26, 1931 and sentenced to 2 years of rigorous imprisonment. Agrarian unrest rocked the United Provinces. When Gandhi disembarked in Bombay on December 28th, he learned from reporters of the arrests of Nehru and many Congress leaders. Last year, we faced lathis, Gandhi told a meeting in Bombay, but this time we must be prepared to face bullets. He was now prepared to sacrifice 1,000,000 lives for achieving freedom, passionately urging his followers to embrace death as we embrace a friend. On 1st January 1932, He wired the Viceroy for guidance and clarification as to the meaning of such harsh repression. But Lord Wellington was not interested in meeting Gandhi again, nor in explaining his tactics or strategy to the man he now viewed as Britain's arch enemy. The Working Committee of the Congress met in Bombay to hear Gandhi's negative assessment of the Round Table Conference and now resolved to reaffirm its demand for complete independence and the boycott of liquor shops and all foreign cloth. They also called for the resumption of unlicensed manufacture of salt and for civil disobedience against every unjust ordinance. It grieves me, Gandhi wired the Viceroy again, disappointed by Wellington's ignoring his advance. I had approached as a seeker wanting light. By now, he learned that he too would be arrested, so instead of venturing north to Ahmedabad, he waited in Bombay's Mani Bhavan, sleeping on the roof of that sturdy three-story building, now a museum to his memory. Bapu slept like a child committed to his father's hands. Vernier Elvin recalled, I thought of Christ. Suddenly, a whisper, the police have come. We startled up and I saw a fully uniformed commissioner of police at the foot of Bapu's bed. Mr. Gandhi, it is my duty to arrest you. A beautiful smile of welcome broke out on Bapu's face. He never resisted arrest, but since it was Silent Monday, he did not say a word, taking out a pencil to write. I will be ready to come with you in half an hour. Then he brushed his teeth and retired. Meera Behan, Devdas, and Ba all touched his feet before he left, following him down the 3 flights of stairs. A crowd had gathered around the car that drove him back, with Vallabh Bhai, also arrested that day, to Yaravda jail. Under Regulation 25 of 1827, Gandhi was jailed during the pleasure of government to avoid greater public attention or the embarrassment of a minutely reported trial. 4 harsh new ordinances had been passed, stripping India of all its residual civil rights. Arrests of all Congress leaders now followed swiftly. Thus, India's brief political truce reverted to war. In 4 months, 60,000 passionate resistors filled every prison cell in the land. Chapter 16. Imprisoned Soul of India. Gandhi never despaired behind bars. Adversity only cheered his passionate nature and intensified his resolve. The 1932-33 prison interlude brought the purifying rays of his inner light to focus on Hinduism's gravest injustice, the crime of untouchability. On March 11, 1932, Gandhi wrote to India's new Secretary of State, Sir Samuel Hoare, to remind him of a warning he had issued in the closing days of the Round Table Conference, that I should resist with my life the grant of separate electorate to the depressed classes. Now he explained at length why he opposed Britain's announced intention of awarding separate electoral status, which would grant a block of separate seats on all the new councils to candidates born only in untouchable communities. Gandhi insisted that untouchable castes remain integral part of Hinduism's body politic. So strong was his opposition to any political vivisection of his faith that Gandhi informed Sir Samuel, I must fast unto death if Britain went ahead and created separately elected representation of untouchables. When Nehru, in his own distant prison cell, later learned of Gandhi's decision, he felt annoyed with him for choosing a side issue for his final sacrifice. Jawaharlal was angry with Bapu for taking this religious sentimental approach to a political question, and his frequent references to God. God has made him do this. God even indicated the date of the fast. What a terrible example to set, the agnostic Nehru noted. Hoare, however, was neither annoyed nor angry. The dogs bark, he said. The caravan moves on. His reply to Gandhi was that realizing fully the strength of your feeling upon the question, we intend to give any decision that may be necessary solely and only upon the merits of the case. As soon as Charlie Andrews learned of Gandhi's resolve to fast unto death, he wrote to try to dissuade his friend. I understand and even appreciate the moral repulsion against fasting unto death. Gandhi replied, I will make myself as certain as it is humanly possible to be, that the will that appears to me to be God's is really his, and not the devil's. To Mira, who was at this time also jailed far away, he wrote more intimate details. Had I learned to use the body merely as an instrument of service and his temple, old age would have been like a beautiful ripe fruit. My only consolation in thinking over the past is that in all I did, I was guided by nothing else than the deepest love for you. To son Devdas, also then in another prison, he wrote of the daily routine he and Mahadev and Vallabhbhai followed. We are happy here. All three of us get up at 3:45 a.m. After we have prayed together, Mahadev goes back to sleep and we too take honey and water and then have a walk. Afterwards, I sleep for about a quarter of an hour. At 6:30, all the three have our breakfast. Gandhi's only other daily meal was at 4 p.m. In between, however, he ate dates and almonds. He spun more cotton than either of his prison mates. Mahadev went through proofs of his book, being published by Oxford University Press, and took dictation from Gandhi daily for about 2 hours. Gandhi learned Urdu, read Ruskin, and taught himself astronomy. Vallabhbhai remains content with reading newspapers mostly. Gandhi reported, the Sardar sometimes reading aloud to them when he came across an interesting or amusing article. From his prison temple, Gandhi continued to offer sage medical advice to all those who sought his help. To one supplicant, he offered a remedy for constipation. You may try it for 2 or 3 days, and if it does not work, give it up. Eat twice or thrice a day cooked tandalja or palak leaves, eating nothing else. To another, he gave his immediate and unfailing remedy for migraine, to bind a mud pack round one's head before retiring. On August 17, 1932, Ramsay MacDonald announced his communal award reserving seats for the depressed classes as well as Muslims and Sikhs. In pursuance of my letter to Sir Samuel Hoare, Gandhi wrote, Dear friend MacDonald, the next day, I have to resist your decision with my life. He declared a fast unto death against the reservation of separate seats for untouchables to begin in 1 month, on September 20th, 1932. What do you think these people will do? Vallabhbhai asked his cellmate on September 6, 1932. I still feel that they will release me on or before the 19th. Gandhi replied, It will be the limit of wickedness if they let me fast, let no one know about it, and then say that I did what I, as a prisoner, ought not to have done, and that they could do nothing. 3 days later, MacDonald replied, arguing that his award, having doubled the number of depressed class votes, should have met with Gandhi's approval rather than eliciting his threat to fast. What I'm against is their statutory separation, even in a limited form, from the Hindu fold, explained Gandhi. Do you not realize that if your decision stands and the constitution comes into being, you arrest the marvelous growth of work of Hindu reformers who have dedicated themselves to uplift of their suppressed brethren in every walk of life? Gandhi considered his fast a unique opportunity for self-purification, urging all his ashram family and others close to him to shed tears of joy rather than sorrow on his behalf. It is both a privilege and a duty, he explained. In non-violence, it is the crowning act. If the Hindu mass mind is not yet prepared to banish untouchability root and branch, it must sacrifice me without the slightest hesitation, he told the press. Untouchables were an integral part of Hinduism's indivisible family. Removal of the infliction of separation and separate electorate privileges on depressed classes would end his fast. Gandhi added, though not the struggle against untouchability, which would then move into high gear. I know you have not missed the woman in me, Gandhi responded to, dear mother, singer and guardian of my soul, Sarojini Naidu, who begged him not to fast. He thus credited his feminine qualities of heart and soul with his resolve now to choose a way of life through suffering unto death. I must therefore find my courage in my weakness. Gandhi's astute consciousness of his own painfully passionate motivation on the eve of this momentous, potentially fatal step was revealing. She who sees life in death and death in life is the real poetess and seeress. He prayed that God may give me strength enough to walk steadily through the veil. If Hinduism is to live, untouchability must die. At 3 a.m. on September 20th, 1932, Gandhi awoke and prepared himself to enter the fiery gate at noon. To his beloved Meera, he wrote that the voice within said, if you will never enter in, you must give up thought of all attachment. No anguish will be too terrible to wash out the sin of untouchability. The spirit which you love is always with you. The body through which you learn to love the spirit is no longer necessary for sustaining that love. My ambition is to represent and identify myself with, as far as possible, the lowest strata of untouchables, Gandhi told the press, explaining his reasons. For they have indeed drunk deep of the poisoned cup. If they are ever to rise, it will not be by reservation of seats but will be by the strenuous work of Hindu reformers. Reporters were allowed inside Puna's prison to open sky compound where Gandhi lay on his fasting bed. What I want, he passionately confessed as he started to fast. And what I should delight in dying for is the eradication of untouchability, root and branch. A conference of Hindu leaders was convened in swift response to the fast in Bombay, including Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, brilliant lawyer and political leader of India's untouchables, who later became India's first Prime Minister, first Minister of Law, and chair of its Constitution Drafting Committee. Ambedkar was furious that Gandhi singled out special representational advantages for his community as his excuse for fasting unto death. Nonetheless, he agreed to go to Pune to discuss the issue with Gandhi, and on September 22nd, they met for their present summit. I want political power for my community, Ambedkar told Gandhi. That is indispensable for our survival. He demanded his just compensation and due having himself insisted in London on the 71 specially reserved seats that MacDonald granted. I want to serve the Harijans, Gandhi replied, using the name which means children of God, first coined by Narasin Mehta, the father of Gujarati poetry. The term was made popular by Gandhi, whose adoption of it for the remaining years of his life gave fresh nominal dignity at least to India's millions of outcasts. Gandhi assured Ambedkar that as a new convert to his community, he was most zealous and wanted a Harijan to be the viceroy of India and a Bhangi untouchable sweeper to serve as president of the Congress. Ambedkar had brought an outline of his demands which Gandhi asked Devdas to have redrafted and which they soon accepted as their agreement. It promised Harijans many more seats in parliament than MacDonald's award had, but they would not run or be elected separately from the great body of Hinduism. All enfranchised Indians would vote only for the competing Harijan candidates for those affirmative action general seats.